Oh, my favorite little fireflies, you showed up. Good. Because what I'm about to tell you is going to ruin every comfortable lie you've been sleeping under, and I'd hate for you to miss the punchline. Something absolutely feral is stirring right now. Sit with that. The people in your life who laughed at you, who whispered behind your back, who stared straight through you like you were wallpaper in a dentist's office. Those people are terrified of you right now. Not mildly uneasy, not squirming in their seats, full body, cold sweat, check the exits, terrified. And it's not because you got a haircut, or landed a promotion, or started posting gym selfies. Something detonated inside you. Something that was always ticking, buried under years of other people's static, so deep you forgot you were carrying it. The second that device went live, the second you started moving differently, talking differently, breathing differently, they felt it. Before you opened your mouth, they felt the temperature in the room change when you walked through the door. They started dodging your eyes, stopped running their tired little cones. Because whatever is burning in you now doesn't follow the old playbook. And somewhere in their guts, sweetheart, they always knew this detonation was coming. They prayed it wouldn't. Prayed. Here is what nobody bothered to mention. The most volatile thing a person does is wake up to who they actually are. Not volatile to the planet. Volatile to every single person who built their little fortress on your smallness. Every person who profited from your doubt. Every person who needed you confused quiet, second-guessing every breath. The second you stop being that, the second you step into what you were hauling this entire time, their fortress starts crumbling from the inside out. And I need you to clock something critical before we go further. What woke up inside you is not new. It was never new. It was buried so carefully, for so long, that even you started believing it was imaginary. And here's the part that will gnaw at you when you sit with it long enough. They didn't hide the truth from you. They hid the truth inside you. Because they knew. On some level, precious, they absolutely knew that the second you found it, you'd be completely, irreversibly unstoppable. Think about that. They weren't suppressing your behavior. They were suppressing your access to yourself, to the reactor living inside you that, once activated, changes the whole grid. That's not an accident. That's not carelessness. That is a specific species of fear. The kind that only surfaces when someone recognizes real voltage and decides the safest play is to make sure you never recognize it either. You want to know what that voltage actually is? It's not a label. It's not a job title. It's not a golden trophy someone slides across a table. It's the thing inside you that knows. That quiet, unshakable knowing that you carry something into this world nobody else carries. It is the voice that has survived every single thing they've thrown at you. Their dismissals, their betrayals, the times you were told you were too much, or not enough, or flat out wrong. That voice is still here, never left, and now it's louder than it has ever been, and they cannot stand it. Stop listening to them. Hear this instead, darling. Most people are just NPCs, but you're a glitch in the matrix. Read The Evolution of the Anomaly, 73 pages of dark clarity. Consider that your intermission. Grab it in the description. Now, let's get back to the show. Let me sketch you a blueprint, darling, because I want you to feel this, not nod politely. Think about where you were 2 or 3 years ago, maybe 6 months ago. You were walking around with this weight in your chest, right here. a low hum of something that felt almost like grief, but you couldn't name it. You were doing the right things, saying the right things, showing up for everyone who needed you. But underneath all of that, there was this pull, this ache towards something bigger, something real, a version of yourself you could sense but couldn't quite reach. And the people around you, comfortable. They liked you exactly where you were, because where you were made sense to them. Your doubt was useful. Your smallness was their safety net. The second you started pulling at that thread, started asking questions you weren't supposed to ask, started listening to that voice that said, "There is more than this." That's when the ground shifted. You started noticing things, seeing through things. You'd be in a conversation and feel the energy in the room tilt before anyone said a word. You'd know things before they happened, not in some dramatic, cinematic way. A quiet, steady knowing. Like your body had intel your mind hadn't processed yet. You'd look at a situation and see 3 layers deep while everyone else was still reading the label on the outside. And instead of trusting that, you second-guessed yourself. Because you'd been trained to. Because every time that knowing surfaced before, someone made you feel unhinged for it. Someone laughed, someone dismissed it, someone told you that you were overthinking, so you'd swallow it back down, smile, and agree. Let them be right. Then 3 weeks later, whatever you sensed would play out exactly the way you felt it would, and you'd be alone somewhere, processing it in silence, wondering what would have happened if you'd trusted yourself from the jump. That's what they stole from you, sunshine. Not your gifts. Nobody steals those. What they stole was your trust in your own perception. They made you a stranger to yourself. And they did it slowly, over years, so carefully that it felt like your own doing, like your doubt was part of your DNA, like that smallness was your natural shape. When the truth is, you were never small. You were made to forget how tall you actually stand. So here's the beautiful contradiction, the very thing they mocked you for. Your sensitivity, your perception, the way you knew things, the way you could feel someone's pain, like it lived in your own ribs, the way you could see around corners that others couldn't even find. Those are the exact things that now terrify them. The sensitivity they called weakness is your signal system, more accurate than anything in their toolkit. The knowing they called crazy is a form of intelligence so advanced that most people never develop it. The depth they called too intense is what makes you capable of things they watch from a distance and envy in the dark. They didn't mock your weakness. They mocked your voltage, and they mocked it because, on some level, they recognized it before you did. Think about that person in your life who's been pulling away lately. The one who used to be loud around you but now goes quiet when you enter the room. The one who's been distant, almost like they're bracing for impact. Maybe there's more than one. You've probably noticed it without fully naming it, because it feels too strange to say out loud. Why would someone be afraid of you? What did you do? You didn't do anything. You became something. You stopped performing your doubt for their comfort. You stopped shrinking when you walked through a door. You stopped apologizing for existing. And for people who built their identity on being bigger than you, on being the authority in your life, that shift is genuinely destabilizing. Because now, when they look at you, they see it. They see what you're carrying, and they don't have anything comparable to bring, so they do what scared people do. They avoid, they undermine, they whisper, they try to recruit others into their discomfort so they're not sitting in it alone. But here's what I need you to understand, and this is the part that rewires everything once it lands. Their fear is confirmation. Read that again. Their fear is not an attack on you. It is confirmation of you. Your awakening is their worst nightmare. Not because you're aggressive, not because you're loud, not because you've done anything wrong, because a person who knows their worth is manipulation-proof. And manipulation was the entire operating system of their relationship with you. The second that operating system crashes, they don't lose control over you. They lose the version of themselves that existed through that control. That is a terrifying thing to watch dissolve in real time. You don't become this threatening to people by accident. Treasure. You don't make people this uncomfortable by existing unless you are carrying something real, something true, something that speaks to the part of them that knows they've been running from their own awakening for years. Your presence is a mirror now, and mirrors are confrontational, especially when someone doesn't like what stares back. There was a moment, you probably remember it, even if you haven't named it. Something clicked. Maybe it was quiet. Maybe it hit you on an ordinary Tuesday, and everything looked different after that. You looked at a situation that used to send you spiraling and you felt steady. You looked at someone who used to hold power over you, and you felt nothing. Not anger, not resentment. Clarity. Like you could see their mechanics, see exactly what they were doing and why. And it didn't land the same way anymore. That was the moment. That was the awakening they've been dreading. Because when you stop being controllable through your own fear, when your buttons stop responding, when the old tricks bounce off, that's when you become someone that people who were never meant to walk alongside you simply cannot handle. And here is the truth nobody in your old circle wants to say out loud. They cannot control a person who has stopped looking for permission to exist. Now I want to give you an image, Starlight. Hold this one, because it explains everything about where you came from and why the wreckage was necessary. Think about a vine. Not one in a manicured garden with perfect soil and a gardener tending it daily. Think about the vine that grows through a condemned building. A seed dropped into cracked foundation, under the weight of expectations, under the pressure of everyone who walked over it without knowing what was underneath. For years that seed sat there. People stepped on it. Society piled weight on top. The circumstances of your life pressed down from every direction. Nobody, not even you, could see what was building underneath all that pressure. But the seed didn't die. The seed used every ounce of that weight as fuel. Because that's what seeds do when you fail to crush them. They grow. And when you awakened, when that thing inside you finally split open, you didn't grow up through the rubble. You cracked the walls they were leaning on. You tore through the foundation. You turned every trauma, every dismissal, every moment of erasure into the exact fuel that powered your bloom. The rubble wasn't the obstacle. The rubble was always the point. It was the prerequisite. And the people who piled it on you, they thought they were demolishing you. They had no idea they were planting you. Here's the thing about the people terrified of you right now. They're not necessarily villains, though some might qualify. Most of them are people who made themselves comfortable in a story where you were smaller than you are. They organized their identity around being the one who knew better, the one who had more, the one who got to dictate the terms. And you let them. Not because you were naive, Because you were operating from a version of yourself that had been taught this was the only option. You made yourself fit their story, and now you don't fit anymore. You outgrew the role they cast you in. That's not a problem you created. That's growth doing exactly what growth does. But let me go deeper, because I want you to understand the real wiring of what happened to you. It wasn't only other people suppressing you. At some point, and this is the uncomfortable part, you started doing it to yourself. You internalized the doubt so thoroughly that it ran on autopilot. You'd have a perception, a knowing, and before it even fully formed, you'd already be questioning it. You'd have an impulse to speak, and the internal sensor would fire before the words left your mouth. You'd feel the rightness of something and immediately catalog every reason you might be wrong. And the wildest part, you called that humility. You called it being careful, being realistic. When what it actually was, Moonbeam, was you doing their work for them. You became so good at silencing yourself that they barely had to lift a finger. You became the lock on your own cage, and the cage was comfortable in a specific way. A painful, suffocating, barely breathing kind of comfortable. Because being in the cage meant being safe from the thing that happens when you're actually visible. The thing that happened those times you did show up fully, did trust yourself, did take up space, and someone made you pay for it. Someone got threatened. Someone got mean. Someone made it clear that your visibility was a problem. And you learned. The nervous system learns fast, especially from pain. So you learned to self-erase before anyone got the chance to do it for you. But you also need to understand something about that cage, about the rubble, about all of it, about where you actually stand right now in relation to your own story. You're not finding yourself. You never were. Finding yourself sounds like a scavenger hunt, like rummaging through lost and found bins. What you're doing is reclaiming a throne you never knew you owned. Think about what that means. The throne was always yours. The voltage was always yours. The knowing was always yours. You were not building toward something new. You were displaced from something ancient and true that belongs to you by right. Every year in the rubble, every year under the wreckage, every year of smallness and doubt, that was temporary displacement, not permanent reality. You were always royalty wandering in the wrong kingdom, and now you're walking back in. You know what this reminds me of, my little arsonists? Stay with me, because this is going to land differently than you expect. I think about The Matrix, not the sequels, the first one. Think about Neo before he woke up. Thomas Anderson, office drone, following rules, living inside a system specifically designed to keep him manageable, predictable, contained. And the thing that always gets me about that film is this. The agents, those terrifying, all-powerful agents, were not afraid of Neo when he was asleep. They ignored him. He was a file number, a non-threat. But the second he started waking up, the second he started questioning the system, sensing something underneath the surface that didn't add up, they sent everything after him. Not because he'd done something dangerous yet, because they could feel what was coming. They knew that a fully awakened Neo was a threat their entire world couldn't survive. And here is the part that should raise every hair on your arm. You are Neo right now, not the version dodging bullets in a trench coat. The version in the elevator where Agent Smith leans in and says quietly that they've been watching you, because you've woken up to something they cannot put back to sleep. And the system's fear isn't evidence that you're dangerous. It's evidence that you are free. The agents only chase the ones worth chasing. And here is what's happening now. And this is what makes your experience different from a confidence boost, or a self-help binge, or a good couple of weeks. What's happening now is not you deciding to feel better. It is a remembering, a deep, cellular-level remembering of something that was never actually lost. The version of you that exists fully. The version that trusts its knowing, that speaks from its center, that doesn't calculate the cost before every breath. That version never disappeared. It went very, very quiet. And now it's not quiet anymore. It's awake and walking around the world through your body, looking out through your eyes. It's the thing people feel when they walk into a room where you are. It's the thing that has the people who need you to stay small, genuinely losing sleep. And you know what's wild? You feel it too. You know the person you are right now is not the person you were. You feel the steadiness underneath things that used to shake you. You feel how your body doesn't brace the same way. You feel how differently you process what used to be an attack. What used to land like a wound now lands like information. What used to take you out for days now registers and releases. That's not healing. That is emergence. That is the vine tearing through the condemned building. That is the thing inside you, taking up its rightful space. And it's not going back. So what do you do with all of this? The people who are terrified? The people pulling back? The people who suddenly struggle to meet your eyes? You don't manage their fear. That's not your gig. You don't shrink back down to make the room cozy again. You don't perform smallness to ease their anxiety, because here's what you have to understand. Their discomfort is not your responsibility. It never was. What you were doing all those years when you made yourself small wasn't kindness. It was a trade. You traded your aliveness for their comfort. You traded your visibility for their safety. And you called it love. You called it being a good person. But it cost you something you cannot keep paying. And I need to say this clearly, Petal, because this might be the most important part of everything I'm telling you right now. Stop trying to crawl back into the rubble you grew out of. Stop trying to compress yourself back into the shape that made the old world comfortable. You were never meant to blend in with the wreckage. The vine doesn't retreat underground once it's broken through. It doesn't apologize for splitting the walls. It doesn't make itself smaller because the building is inconvenienced. It stands there impossibly alive, in the middle of something that was never designed to sustain it. And it blooms anyway. That's you. That's exactly what you are right now. And the people who are terrified, they are looking at a vine growing through a condemned building and they cannot explain it, cannot control it, cannot make it fit their limited blueprint of what you were and what you were supposed to stay. Good. Let them be confused. Let them be scared. Let them stare. You were sent here. And I don't mean that in a way designed to make you feel special. I mean it the way a lit match means it when it touches gasoline. You are here for a reason they will never be able to talk you out of. Not anymore.